Hello guys and girls, this is Kentucky. Let's talk about the Havoc Demon Hunter, which is the DPS spec of the Demon Hunters. The So let's start with the basics. Single target rotation is basically the same as it was. We are just pushing 3, maybe 4 buttons and the cooldowns. But AoE wise it received great changes. It has much more option to use, and it has a wider toolkit. So let's take a look at first on the spellbook, because there are several changes there. For example, the first important change is that each enemy stunned by a Chaos Nova has a 30% chance to generate a lesser soul fragment, which is very important because you can generate more fury with lesser soul fragments with the talent, and of course you receive much more self-healing when you stun an enemy, so that's just a great change for Chaos Nova. Moving on, Chaos Strike has been changed slightly. In Legion, Chaos Strikes, critical strikes had refunded Fury. Now Chaos Strike has a flat 40% chance to refund 20 Fury, which makes it a bit better spell on lower eye level, because if we don't have at least 40% crit, then this generates more proc chances or more chances. But if we have over 40% crit, it becomes a flat out nerf for this spell. Consume Magic is a new spell. However, we had Consume Magic in Legion, but the Legion version of Consume Magic, which was a interrupt, became this disrupt spell. So the new Consume Magic is now a offensive purge. It removes one beneficial magic effect from the target, and it grants you 20 fury, which is a great utility spell. Moving forward, Eye Beam is also changed. The last sentence, what you can read, is the change for it, because your primary target of your Eye Beam will take 100% increased damage, which is a pretty good buff for single target DPS. AoE wise, it's also a buff, but it's not that great or not that huge. Moving on, Imprison is now on a 45-second cooldown. It is a 30-second increase, which is like because of the homogenization of the classes. All classes have an incapacitate that is roughly on a 1-minute cooldown. So that's why they had to increase Demon Hunter's cooldown as well. Moving on, what do we have now? Yeah, of course, we have 2 new passives, which are Chaos Brand and Demonic Wards. Chaos Brand is a magical damage taken debuff on your target. Everyone that you hit is debuffed with this, which makes a necessary Demon Hunter for each raid, because of course you have this other component, the physical damage taken debuff at monks. So basically Blizzard wants us to play more with the Demon Hunters and monks, because there will be one mandatory monk and one mandatory Demon Hunter in each raid to debuff all the targets, so they take more damage. And Demon Ward is a flat out magic damage reduction tool. You are just taking less magic damage, which is great. Of course, Havoc Demon Hunters are not really often used, and this could help them get their spots in Mythic Plus mainly, because this is an official stat that at Mythic Plus, Demon Hunters, DPS Demon Hunters were the least played, alongside with Rogues and Feral Druids. So this could help them a little bit. And Shattered Souls have been slightly changed, because baseline they do not generate fury, and if you consume soul fragments, then they only heal you for 20% from now on. That's just a flat out self-heal nerf for the Demon Hunter, but since you generate much more soul fragments, for example with Chaos Nova, then it's not really an issue. So moving on to the talent section, We have two talent options. One that is the single target, which is the one I use currently. You can also alter between demonic and nemesis, depends on if you want burst, DPS or sustain. And you can also use the AoE build, which is looks like this. And I will tell you the difference between these two builds right now. But first, sorry guys, but first let's take a look on each and every single one of the talents. Blind Fury makes I-Beam generates 40 Fury, and its duration is increased by 50%, which makes a great AoE tool. Of course, you can I-Beam or AoE for longer and also generate Fury. Demonic Appetite is just a Fury generation tool. Consuming soul fragments grants you 30 Fury, and Chaos Strike also generates lesser soul fragments. It's not that bad, but I don't think that Fury generation is a problem in any situation for the Havoc Demon Hunter, so we don't need to take a Fury generator tool. Of course, Fellblade is a great single target DPS tool because it is a little bit more than average damage, and of course Demon's Bite have a chance to reset it, which is why we choose the passive Demon's Blade, because then Fellblade has a passive chance to just proc and reset its cooldown, and it also generates a huge amount of Fury. So basically Fellblade is the best single target and Blind Fury is the best AoE option in this tier. Moving to the next tier is Insatiable Hunger, Demon Blades and Immolation Aura. Immolation Aura generates huge amounts of Fury over 10 seconds. It also deals massive amounts of damage AoE wise during 10 seconds. It is available every 25 seconds, lowered by haste, which is great. So basically that is a awesome AoE option, mainly for sustain AoE. Demon Blades replaces Demon's Bite. It makes it a Warrior Vengeance style of play, because your auto attacks will do this Demon's Bite thing, and they will also generate addition of Fury. So basically it is great for single target, and of course it also procs passively Fellblade. Insatiable Hunger is a flat out Demon's Bite Fury generation, which is of course we don't need it, so why should we take it? For single target take Demon's Bite, Demon Blades, and for AoE take Immolation Aura. Next tier is Trail of Ruin, Fell Mastery and Fell Barrage. Fell Mastery increases fire rush damage by 100%. It could be used in AoE situations, but fire rush damage is a little bit low, so not sure about it. Trail of Ruin just makes your final slash of Blade Dance inflict an additional dot to the target, which is also could be good, but the main problem with this tier is that Fell Barrage is way overpowered compared to the other two stats. Single target and AoE as well. It deals a metric shit ton of damage. It deals huge damage. It's your best damaging ability inside or outside of Metamorphosis. So basically you will have to take Fell Barrage all the time. 104 tier is Soul Rending, Desperate Instincts, and Netherwalk. Netherwalk is a movement speed increase tool and a 5-second immunity, which is great. I take it all the time because of the immunity. Others are also good because Soul Rending increases baseline leech and grants an additional 10% leech while the Metamorphosis is active. It's particularly good in situations like island expeditions, because you can have much more self-healing and you can be much more durable during these scenarios. And Desperate Instincts increases the damage reduction from your Blur, which is great, and Blur will automatically trigger below 35% health if it's not on cooldown. So that's basically a save your ass mechanic. However, I always prefer the immunity over this other two. Next tier is Cycle of Hatred, First Blood and Dark Slash. Basically for single target, Dark Slash is good because it is an active spell which you can push, and it increases your next Chaos Strike's damage by 40%. But Cycle of Hatred I think is way better for single target situations, because each Chaos Strike you push will reduce the cooldown on Metamorphosis. Of course, it says when it refunds Fury. It's very important, because it has 40% chance to refund Fury. And with Cycle of Hatred, for example, every third Chaos Strike will reduce the cooldown on Metamorphosis by 3 seconds, which is like a 1 minute reduction overall on the Metamorphosis, which is awesome. I think it is way better than the Dark Slash buff. So basically you should take Cycle of Hatred over Dark Slash for single target. And of course, because of the Fury cost reduction on Blade Dance, you should take First Blood for AoE situations. Of course, Blade Dance will cost less Fury and it inflicts more damage to the primary target. Basically that means that it's for AoE. And the other two is for single target. Or Cycle of Hatred could be used in burst AoE situations when you need to use your Metamorphosis much more often in AoE situations. 108 role is Unleashed Power, Master of the Glaive, Fell Eruption. I think Fell Eruption currently is just a weak single target stun. I don't think you should take it in any scenario unless if you really need that single target stun. Unleashed Power is the go-to option for AoE because it removes the Fury cost of Chaos Nova and reduces its cooldown by 33%, which makes it a 40-second cooldown, which is great because of two things. One, that it can generate lesser soul fragments, and the other, that you have a more frequent access to your stun, so basically that's just great. Master of the Glaive is the only real single target option in this tier, which makes Glaive have 2 charges and snares all enemies it hit by 50% for 6 seconds, which is great. So for single target, always take Master of the Glaive, and for AoE I suggest Unleash Power. Of course, Flare option for the single target stun is also useful, but not that great. Level 110 roll Demonic, Momentum and Nemesis. Nemesis is just a flat out damage done increase to your target. It increases the damage you inflict by 25% for 1 minute. And when the target is slain, you will inflict 25% additional damage against all creature types matching the original target for the remaining duration, which is also a great effect. Moving on, so it's basically a sustain single target stuff. Moving on, if you want burst single target stuff, then you should choose Demonic, because I-Beam will cause you to enter demon form for 8 seconds after it finishes dealing damage, which is a great burst DPS option for single target. For AoE it's also not bad, but only for burst AoE. For sustained AoE damage you should choose Momentum, which makes your Fell Rush increases your damage done by 15%, and Vengeful Rift, its cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds, and it will generate Fury over time. So basically it is a great sustain, a not bad burst option for AoE, but it is definitely not good for single target, because in single target DPS we won't use Fell Rush, because its initial damage is just bullshit. So we only use Fell Rush for this damage portion. So let's take a look on this AoE situation. At first you will have to cast your Fell Rush, then during the momentum window cast your I-Beam, then again Fell Rush, then your Fell Bridge with the other buff. So basically that's just it. Generate some Fury, and in the momentum window I-Beam, Again. Fell Barrage. Blade Dance. Again, damage increase buff. Momentum. I don't really like this AoE, how it works, but and I can't really play with this too well because I have too many things to pay attention to. So sorry guys if I play it wrong, but I'm not a pro Demon Hunter player. Again, this spell, it's really complicated for me, sorry. But to maximize its damage output you have to play like this, and I always want to maximize my damage output, and that's why it's not really for my taste, this class, because I can't really maximize the play style as I can play. You should never use the Fell Barrage without this 15% momentum buff, because that's just an awesome increase in your damage output. So basically with this little bit of I don't know how to play style, you can see that, oh, somewhere I got bugged. Okay, so just restart it again. We should wait the cooldown on Fell Barrage. Oh, never mind, that started. So it's just Vengeful Retreat, I-Beam. Of course, it's not it doesn't have an unlimited range, so we will always just hit 3 targets, also increasing our damage. Again, increase our damage. Throwglaive, increase our damage. Vengeful Retreat for Fury generation, and then the Fell Barrage, Immolation Aura when it fades, and of course I-Beam again. And try to play as good as you can. It's not that hard, I think, just I don't know how to play it well. Some Vengeful Retreats, again Blade Dance, again one more Momentum buff, and one more I-Beam. A last Blade Dance, and we're finished. So let's take a look on the numbers. Now, of course, it didn't count the Fell Barrage. Great. Basically, Fell Barrage and I-Beam are roughly the same AoE wise. Then Blade Dance melee, and then Immolation or Throwglaive are the next two options. Fell Rush doesn't really do much damage AoE wise, just as Demon's Bite and Chaos Blaze, but those are single target spells. But we only use Fell Rush for these AoE buff options, the momentum plus 15% buff. So let's take a look on the single target style of play, because that's just a little bit better, or at least I like it more. So it's just some replacement of talents. So it's basically I-beaming, Fell Barraging, and using as many Chaos Strikes / Annihilates as you can. Just use as many as you can. As you can see, I do not really run out of pain. It's just a rare occasion, so pain generation is not a problem currently, in my opinion. It could be an issue if you achieve higher gear levels and you can't just flat out spam your Chaos Strike / Fell Blade, as I remember, or Annihilation. But as you can see, if Metamorphosis is not active, then it's just you just generate too many fury to spend. Of course, when the Metamorphosis is active, you're generating far less, or you're just consuming far more fury. So basically that's just a single target rotation. You can see here that Annihilation and Chaos Strikes are your top DPS spells. Of course, most of the time I was in Metamorphosis, that's why Annihilation is way much more than Chaos Strikes, but roughly they are the same. Of course, the meta buff, Metamorphosis buff, also increases Chaos Strike's damage, so basically that's just a damage increase to Chaos Strike. However, if you are... sorry. If you are not in Metamorphosis, then Chaos Strike does your most damage, then Fellbreach and Divebeam. And of course, Fellblade, Demon Blades and Stroglaive are just small portion of your damage, they're just generating fury. So basically this is the Havoc Demon Hunter. I hope you liked it, guys. I'm not sure that I will play it, because I don't really like this playstyle. Mainly AoE wise, single target I don't really have problem with it, but we will see you in the next video, and we will talk about my personal favorite class, the Vengeance Demon Hunter in Battle for Azeroth. So see you later, and bye bye.